welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. I'm your host, Amy Zawi. Today we have an incredible woman joining us. Her name is Rachel Simmons, founder of a company called Seed and Mill, which we're going to learn more about during this episode. But Rachel comes to us with a pretty unique perspective and a very interesting background. A professional woman from Australia, a Jewish woman who also had a career change at a point in her life to become entrepreneurial. And the innovation that she had for her business was to take a staple of the Middle Eastern diet that is actually part of the worldwide diet, so to speak, and she wove that into a business that really builds bridges and connects people through cuisine. And Rachel also lives in Manhattan at the moment, so we're going to learn about her experiences there. But Rachel, thank you for joining our program today. It's so great to see you again. I was able to meet Rachel for the first time at an Israeli American Council International Women's Day event just in the end of March. So it feels like a long time ago, but it also feels like yesterday. And I was just enamored by her story. And Rachel, I would love for you to say hello to our audience and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey, your professional journey that led you to this unique and innovative company that you have called Seed and Mill.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I'm really honored to be with you today. It was fantastic to meet you a month ago, and this conversation is very meaningful to me. So thank you for inviting me to connect with your community and audience. So as you can hear, I'm Australian. I've lived in New York for 11 years now. I moved here for personal work reasons with my husband, who had a career change. At that moment in time, I was 40 and I was ready for something else. So I had previously worked as an attorney, a labor lawyer in Sydney, and I'd traveled all around the world for work, which was exciting, but it wasn't really my personal passion. To sort of sit in a desk and practice law wasn't really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So at that stage, I was looking for something that was a little bit more personally fulfilling and brought together elements of my life that were just, very meaningful. So when I think back to how Seed and Mill began, it was really a connection or the intersection of the things that are important to me. So they include things like travel. I really like to see the world and to interact with people from other geographies, other cultures, other religions. I find it enormously fulfilling just to hear, well, who are you, and how do you celebrate holidays? What matters to you? What does God look like or feel like to you? Those sorts of questions. I just love hearing those other stories. My other passion in life is food. I've always loved to cook at home. I love to host people in my home. And being in and amongst the food industry was just a bucket list sort of project. And so I embarked on a business that at the time when we began, which was in 2016, we started as a shop. And as you noted earlier, our shop sold food that comes from sesame. So we took this tiny, humble seed and we really wanted to think about, well, where does the seed come from? How do people eat it? What are the things that we can create around this flavor that also brings brings to life the stories of that little seed? And so all of those things came together, and our shop became really more of a business, and then the business eventually turned into a brand, and we celebrated our 10-year anniversary in January, which was, I had to pinch myself to think back where we were 10 years ago, and hopefully we're at the beginning of another decade of fulfilling and fun work.
Well, it's unique when I heard your story that that your love for cuisine and your love for travel and meeting people from other cultures, languages, religions, etc. And then you chose the sesame seed as sort of the foundation of this cuisine that you built around it. So your shop, as you mentioned, I know that you made ice cream out of this, and I have a few of your products. There's there's chocolate sauce. There's other things. And I thought to myself, you've got this little seed, and it is utilized, even though it's sort of grown in. And you can explain this more because your supply chain is really illustrative of how innovative you've been to make sure that your business is rising the tide of all boats, right? Different cultures are benefiting it. You source one place, you process one place, and this seed is also a timeless seed. It's been around for centuries, if not millennia, and it also made its way to a variety of cultures. And as you mentioned, that's where you learned about your recipes. So give us that little journey of that seed that illustrates a journey through time and space and culture, and how you decided that would be, I don't know if you decided it or if it was happenstance, but that created this idea of an outreach, that food was this great place to meet up, right? Like,
Yeah. I always feel as food is the greatest of all unifiers. If we can
right.
all break, we always talk about let's break bread together, and bread is, this metaphor for nourishment. We all need food to eat, but it's really not just the physical nourishment, but actually all of those emotional connections that are formed around a table, and the memories that come from food. I really like to think that sesame found me rather than me finding sesame. I'm very much a storyteller who likes to look for symbols, and I really like to look for meaning and metaphors in my life. Sometimes I feel like this was all some sort of predestined experience, and who knows why or how this all emerged, but somehow 11 years ago I found myself in this shop, and all of these people kind of came into my life to tell me their stories, and I was really captivated by their experiences and their home recipes, their nostalgia, their memories. And so I brought all of those stories together into a cookbook that I wrote last year. And I can't even really tell you why this experience happened, but I really see myself as a person who can advocate for all of the people in our supply chain, and to really connect. It sounds a little bit trite, and I'm trying not to sort of just give you and your audience a whole lot of cliches, but I live and breathe this every day at our store, which is in the center of Manhattan. And if I can kind of come back to our store, we get we have a little shop in a big marketplace, and the marketplace is known as Chelsea Market. And within Chelsea Market, there's about 20,000 people a day that wander through the market. And of those 20,000 people, I wish they all came and tried some of our products. They don't all come to our store, but they really are coming into this place to experience others, connect with others. You can hear umpteen languages, and people will come to our store and they'll say, oh, I know these products, or I recognize. Our main hero product is an item called halva, and I'll talk about the history of that in a second and how we make it and who makes it. But this one confection that has thousands of years of history, people will come and they'll say, oh, I'm from Afghanistan. We put halva on our flatbread and we roll it up in the morning, and I've eaten this for breakfast every day of my life. I didn't even know you knew of this in New York. Or then I'll get somebody from Poland or from Russia or from Ukraine who tell me, oh, we were given halva at school every day. This was our lunch break snack.
Wow.
And then I get people from India, and they'll come to the store and they'll say, oh, it's halva. We have this. We make it out of semolina flour. We, do it like this, or we do it like that. And story after story would emerge. And so many of these stories were emotional because it was a memory trigger, and it was an opportunity for people to share how food has embedded themselves in their memories, and those memories travel. And I just think in a world where we're all sometimes a little bit lost looking for meaning, this has just been such a sweet, literally sweet because halva means sweet, but it's just such a sweet, small, symbolic gesture of how we can actually connect with each other.
Wow. I mean, I think it's beautiful. For those of you who are wondering, the cookbook is available I'll share links so folks can find you on Instagram and find your products, find your website, and get the book. And the book is actually an amazing collection, as Rachel mentioned, of sort of international flair, right? Based on this little seed. So, what struck me about Seed and Mill and what started as a shop and built and then became a brand, and now folks from anywhere can access your products, is the fact that you're in Manhattan, you're a Jewish woman, and you have this shop, and you're innovating, and you're building bridges, using cuisine, and just meeting people. It's not even an overt sort of outreach per se. It's just a very natural progression of a passion for food. And you're very careful about sourcing, so the quality of your products are not tainted and everything. You know, it's all like clean eating, as we would say. But you're also dealing with a little bit of in the current culture, and I don't know if it's since October 7th, or I've been covering the BDS movement for about 13, 14 years now. Have you found in Manhattan, amongst what I'm sure the majority of people embracing and sharing and their stories, embracing your products, and just exciting to find you in your shop, what has been your experience about any pushback or I don't want to say hostility, but tension, and how do you respond to that, or how would you respond to it if you had a chance to sit down with someone who said, "I want to boycott your store because you happen to be Jewish. Even you're not even Israeli, but
Yeah.
but those lines seem to get blurred with some folks."
Yes, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and I might, if it's okay, I might just quickly go back a step
Yes.
before we talk about the BDS, which has very sadly been a significant issue for our business in the last 2 to 3 years since October 7th. Our business is 10 years old, and the first 7 years it was really almost irrelevant, but it's certainly been a concentrated pattern of hostility. No, I wouldn't say it's there's not a lot of people, but the small minority of people are very noisy, and it's very targeted, and it is very demoralizing for our team. And I think for an industry, or certainly for a business that really prided itself on being an accessible, open, welcoming, there's nothing sort of exclusionary about our brand, so it was very disappointing to me as the founder. But I will go back just for a second to the history of halva and the history of tahini, which are the two key products that we make. So tahini is made out of grinding sesame seeds, and halva is the confectionery cousin of tahini. It's made by combining sugar and tahini together. These two items are really ancient foods or ingredients. They're about 5,000 years old, and the word halva actually is an Arabic word. It comes from the word halawe, and halawe is the word for sweet. And so it does have thousands and thousands of years of history and of having been enjoyed in, let's just call it, the Middle East region. It doesn't really matter whether it was first eaten in Israel or first eaten in Jordan or first eaten in Syria. Those countries with those names didn't even exist
Exactly.
thousands of years ago. It was eaten and enjoyed by the people living in that region, and then the love for the delicious food traveled with merchants. And because halva didn't need any kind of refrigeration, it has a long shelf life, it's very nutrient dense. It was just one of those things that was easy to transport and become these beloved staple confections in all these other countries. But when I think about, well, who first ate it, who first enjoyed it, first of all, to me, it doesn't really matter. We don't have to. For me, it doesn't feel like a halva cake where, oh, I'm going to take out a slice of that cake and say, well, Jews ate it, or Arabs ate it, or Poles ate it, and therefore, who owns this cake? It doesn't matter. There's infinite slices for everybody. And that's not to necessarily also diminish the integrity of where it comes from. I can proudly say both Jews and Muslims and Arabs have enjoyed these products, and it's not a competition. That's how I personally feel. But since October 7th, we've certainly had a lot of people that will accuse us of having appropriated food from that culture, or having stolen the food from Palestinians, or that sort of narrative has come up a lot. And then back to your question on the BDS, we've had a lot of people say, oh, I used to like your products, but I now see it's made in Israel, so I can no longer support you and your brand because you're all complicit in a genocide. And we get that statement, or that email, a social media post, people come to our store. We get that, I would say, at least once a week, if not more frequently.
Wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the reality is that your product isn't exclusive to Jews or Jewish Israelis. Can you explain? I don't want you to reveal any of your proprietary secrets, but maybe explain how your business actually elevates all the hands that are involved, and they aren't just Jewish Israeli or Jewish outside of Israeli, that it really is an eclectic a supply chain that blesses all the people that get to participate in this endeavor that you have created.
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to highlight and humanize them. I mean, Cedar Mill is the brand, but really we partner with manufacturing families. They're not, I just wish we could all just get back to our humanity. And so when people say I'm boycotting your brand, I often want to say, well, hold on, let's just unpack, who are you boycotting? You're boycotting not a brand or a business or a corporation. You're boycotting individuals, and you are hurting and harming those individuals. So first of all, let's ask, how is this boycott actually going to help anybody? If you would like to be helping the people in that region, how is this boycott actually going to be impactful? But more importantly, who is it that you're harming? So I love to humanize and tell the stories of our partners over in Israel. So with our tahini, we partner with a family that's located up in the north of Israel. They're not far from Nazareth. And it's a family that's headed up or led by a Muslim Arab Israeli. His name's Ibrahim. He's in his 80s, and about 5 years ago, he's been making tahini for generations with his family, but he didn't have any children who wanted to take over the family business. So about 5 years ago, he brought in a CEO for the business, and that person is a Jewish Israeli. And this wonderful Muslim Israeli decided, I'm going to entrust the future of my business and my family's economic future to a Jew. And then the Jewish Israeli hired team members and other executives, and his executive team is comprised of other Jewish Israelis, Druze Israelis. I'm sure many people in your audience know that there's another cohort or sect of people in Israel called the Druze. They live in the north, and they work in the factory. There are other Muslims, and then even I found out not that long ago there's a Thai member of the team, and he's a Buddhist. And so here we have this wonderful, eclectic, religiously diverse group of people. They go to work, they work hard, they're there to put food on our tables, they're there to earn money to put food on their own tables. They go to work and they go home and they nurture their families. They're not looking for conflict, and they all live in a very free, equal society. When people talk about apartheid, I'm like, what apartheid? Here is this beacon of industry that represents everything that Israel is and can be. And so I love to tell their story. And so when people say, well, I'm going to boycott your brand, I'm like, well, who are you helping here? This is going to help nobody. So anyway, thank you for giving me the chance to highlight them.
Well, I think that's an important story to tell, because I don't think a lot of people understand the fact that boycotting and just maligning businesses, online and social media and whatnot, or standing in front of their store with signage and just screaming, it is indeed, like you mentioned, a small but loud minority. And so that takes away from the majority who simply want to enjoy your product and the experience of it. But at the same time, that's the whole point about the Israeli society, isn't it? That it is non-discriminatory. People look for the employers or business owners, they look to hire the best qualified folks and the best work ethic to help grow that business, which will hire more people. And that, like I said before, kind of raises the tide for all the boats and all the families. And they're not all the Jewish families, but all the Israeli families, the Jews included. Maybe there's even Aramean Christians. I mean, in the north, there's an Arab Christian population, but they all go to work and they're all just enjoying that diversity. And it's a beautiful thing to see and learn about firsthand from you that is happening in Israel, and it gives our audience that firsthand account that, like you mentioned, what apartheid. I mean, here it is. Now, I'm not sure what the businesses are like or were like in Gaza. I'm sure there weren't any, well, there were no Jews in Gaza at all, and the Christian population in Gaza certainly wasn't getting equal rights at work, whatever businesses they may have been in. But be that all as it may, our desire is for if every community that surrounded Israel emulated those practices and then partnered with the rest of the world, whether it's you in Manhattan or other small companies in Europe or Asia or what have you, we would see a lot more peace and a lot less conflict, that's for sure. Now, you mentioned that, so you have manufacturing or supply chain that comes out of Israel, your products are made in Israel. Was there any, what else do you source? Do you go outside Israel to source the actual sesame seeds or any other components of the products?
That's a great question. So yeah, we source the sesame seed itself in Ethiopia. That's another country that sadly has a lot of conflict. There's a civil war that's been raging in Ethiopia for a while, and so we used to source exclusively from Ethiopia, but they have their own manufacturing and supply chain issues. So we now source from a couple of other countries adjacent to Ethiopia, but it's largely in that same African region. And the reason for that is there's a number of reasons. And one is the region produces really sweet sesame. Sesame, I like to say, is a commodity similar to grapes or chocolate or cocoa beans, where if you want to drink a beautiful glass of wine, you need to start with excellent grapes. Or if you're looking for an excellent bar of chocolate, your cocoa beans are really important, or your coffee beans will make the best coffee. So similarly, tahini or sesame paste or sesame seeds, good tahini or good sesame starts with a great crop. So they happen to grow sweeter seeds and a higher ratio of oil in their seeds. But the other factor here is that Ethiopia really depends on sesame export. It's one of the third or fourth biggest export industries out of the whole country. It's a very labor-intensive process, and not many other countries in the world either grow the crop or can harvest the crop efficiently. So again, I'm proud to be able to support those people over there. And again, back to where we started this conversation, I'm always a human looking to look for symbols and stories. And in a world where everything just feels often so digital, even though we're chatting here today we met in person, which was really lovely. And my wish for everybody is really if we could only kind of think a little bit beyond the package. You don't need to see a package and just see the plastic or the glass and the lid and the label. Try to think about, well, who are those people growing those seeds? Who are the people grinding the seeds? Who are the people now trying to educate around what to do with them? These are the jobs that are really fulfilling, and they feed people both, it's feeding me literally, but as you can see, it's really feeding me metaphorically. And it also connects me back to the people with the BDS, bees in their bonnet. I often feel sorry for them, Amy. I just feel like they're back there, the keyboard warriors. They're the people who are lacking kind of humanity and lacking, some sort of either spiritual or other meaning in their lives, and they've sort of grasped onto this conflict. And so many of them, they've never been. I do often say to people, so when was the last time you were in Gaza? And they always say, I haven't been to Gaza. And I like to say, well, actually, I was in Gaza. I spent quite a few weeks living in Gaza in the 90s. In 1990, I spent 3 weeks in Gaza, and whilst 1991 was a long time ago, I have a visual feel for it. I have memories of that place. I've connected with the people in this land, and obviously now I go backwards and forwards to Israel with my business. But I wish more people would just take a moment, don't just read what they read on the news or social media, or even worse, and try to think about who are these people and what are their stories.
Well, that's exactly the point, and that I mean, I've covered BDS for a decade and a half, and it always amazed me that the folks that were so sort of virulent about boycotting Israel didn't realize that they were hurting a lot of not Israelis by doing that. And in our community, the Jerusalem Connection audience, of course, is very supportive of Israel and their businesses. But we're also Christians, and we're very mindful of the plight that many Christians are having in parts of Africa. And we are sensitive to what those folks are going through, and to know that you are personally part of an organization, a business that helps produce a livelihood, helps produce revenue, helps produce purpose and jobs for the communities in Africa beyond the borders of Israel. I mean, I think our audience is really going to treasure that knowledge and really take that story to their own sphere of influence, because as you said, we can't rely on the news to tell us the whole story about what's going on. And a lot of people fall prey to the boycott mantras, and they might change their mind if they knew the reality. I mean, I'm sure you've encountered young people in Manhattan that are just sort of along for the ride because they need a purpose, and if they had all the facts, would be like the opposite. They'd be like, how many of these things can I afford to buy at your shop to keep that chain?
I'm glad you mentioned the awful situation that a lot of Christians are in Africa. It is absolutely tragic, and I think it has not garnered not even an iota of the news that other tragedies around the world have attracted so much more attention. And there's so many people that are also being targeted because of their faith, and their stories are just never as present. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I also, I know. I'm trying to think about all the things that I would love to share with your community and your audience, but I would love to also mention that my husband is not Jewish, he's Christian, and it wasn't 5 years ago, it was just before October 7th, it was the spring of 2023, we took Chris, my husband's name is Chris, we took all of his family to Israel on a very big trip to really explore the Christian history of Israel. So we spent a lot of time up in the north and up around the Sea of Galilee and Nazareth and all of these really special places that are important to people of the Christian faith. And I'm just so proud that this country can exist and be so beloved by people of so many faiths. But I still kind of want to come back to, how are we going to protect it? How are we going to keep these historical sites safe and treasured by, for all of us?
And accessible, that we can't travel.
Exactly.
We can't all move to Israel and live there as much as some of us may want to, but we want to go and travel there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't live there, but it doesn't mean I don't. It doesn't mean I don't love that country with all my heart. And I'm so proud to have taken people and my extended family there. We even baptized my nephews in the Jordan River because they hadn't been baptized, and we decided we were going to spontaneously. It was just a random moment. We were like, you know what? My brother-in-law sort of realized, I never baptized my boys. I'm going to do it right here in Israel. It was wonderful.
That's amazing. So that is a beautiful testimony of how the faiths can celebrate together in one family, right? In one family.
Oh, Amy, I'll finish this story really quickly, but that moment will forever just be the most treasured memory for so many of us, because we had a tour guide with us our tour guide was a Jewish Israeli. He hired a bus driver who was sort of in charge of transporting us for this tour. His name was Mohammed. Mohammed was a Muslim Israeli. Then you had me, who was a Jewish Australian, and then we had my brother-in-law, my husband and his sister and brother-in-law, who are Christian Australians, and there we were celebrating this little baptism moment, all of us together. And honestly, do you know who was the most emotional? I remember this. I looked over at one moment, and Mohammed, our Muslim driver, was crying. He shed tears during this really lovely moment, and I just wish forever that experience could be everyone's experience of Israel.
It's a beautiful experience, and I feel like that folks that take the time and have the opportunity to travel there will witness some version of that, some version of it, with that sort of all the faiths together, and then add in the Druze or what have you, and you've got, I mean, it's a marketplace of humanity. And what I mean by marketplace is that it's an exchange. It's an exchange of services. It's an exchange of friendship and emotions. And everybody comes away a better person from that experience. And,
Absolutely.
And I'm so excited to hear your family had that experience together, all together.
Yeah, we did.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Rachel, is there anything else our audience needs to know so that we can really support your business, amplify that idea of the sesame seed is the great unifier?
This tiny little seed.
It's very healthy. Here's your book. Here's examples of the product. Sorry. You have a website, you have a social media, and then of course you have a shop. Can you just quickly tell us where to go to find you?
Well, first of all, thanks for that. I would love your audience in your community to come and visit us. The nicest thing is when you can come into our store. So if you're ever in New York, Chelsea Market is where our store is located. Come and say hello. Or you can follow us on social media and send us a message or an email. My email is rachel@Cedar Mill. If anyone listening to this wants to ask any questions or reach out, I'd be happy to hear from them. And then our products are sold both at our store, online, and at specialty shops around the country. Probably the easiest is either Sprouts Market or Whole Foods. They both carry our tahini. But yeah, I think, I'm really very much an in-person. I know everyone can't get to New York, but I hope we're here for a while, or maybe we could even expand the business and pop up in other cities. So stay tuned.
Well, we're so happy for you to share just your passions, right? Your passions for life and for people, and that turned into a business, which I think is a wonderful thing. There's an old saying that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. So I hope you feel like you're on vacation all the time, but I'm sure it doesn't feel like.
Let's do a part 2 on being an entrepreneur in her 40s.
Well, that's just it. I do think for anybody out there that's a young person or has young people in their lives that are thinking about entrepreneurship, Rachel, I feel like you should maybe sort of write a book or sort of blog articles at some point and post them to your website, just encouraging young women, young men, anybody, like, because you had a shift. You changed, the country in which you were living, and so you had to move around, halfway around the world, and then you were in a big city, not a little city, and then you started this thing. And I'm sure it wasn't like, you went one day, thought I'll do it, and the next day there was a shop with tahini ice cream. I think there was a process in there we could all learn from. So yeah. I think that is part 2, or at the very least you should think about writing the how-to book for inspiring. I think the young people could use it.
Thank you, Amy.
We'll distribute it at Columbia.
I actually do a lot of talks at Columbia. I do a lot of panel conversations with the food studies students. My worry sometimes is I'm very passionate about the food and the storytelling, and I'm great at telling everybody all of the positive elements of running the business, but no one will come. It'll be no surprise to anybody that running a food business is extraordinarily difficult. And I worry sometimes that I overshare some of those challenges and the trials and tribulations in the metaphor of the roller coaster of running a business is so real. And that high, when you're at the top of that high, it feels phenomenal, but there is always going to be a low. So you got to be ready to be in that valley and to climb back up again.
And it requires discipline and hard work, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I just really encourage our audience to be some of that propellant behind keeping you on the highs of the hills. So,
yeah, let's fuel everybody on some tahini this
that's
month.
right.
And there's lots of, by the way, the rest buy the book if you'd like, but we post tons of free content on our website. So if anybody is interested in what do I do with tahini, you can always find lots of free recipes on our Instagram or our website. So
That's wonderful. And like you said, Sprouts and Whole Foods are available in most major metropolitan areas and suburban areas, or folks can order your products just from your website if they're not near the shop. And I do say for everybody who's in that mode of trying to eat healthy and make sure they're eating well-produced products and not processed products, the seeded meal products are extraordinarily high quality, so you can feel confident in having everything from the sweets to the making your own hummus.
thank you, Amy.
Rachel, we're so blessed to have you. We just want to encourage you. I hope you feel encouraged. I hope sharing your story with our audience gives you a little bit of a high for the afternoon, because it certainly inspires us.
Yeah, you absolutely have, Amy. I'm looking forward to us chatting again sometime soon.
Absolutely, and I hope to be in New York at some point in the next couple of months. I have family there, and I'm going to get to your shop.
I would love that.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. If you enjoy these conversations, please visit us at www.thejerusalemconnection.us. Find all our podcasts on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast program. Follow us on social media, subscribe, like, and share our content to reach the broadest audience.